Well, good afternoon. This is Ian R. Crane. It's the afternoon of Thursday, the 8th of August 2019, and I'm here outside the Royal Courts of Justice in London. Now, just a few minutes ago, we came out of the court after John Smith was successful, finally, in getting his habeas corpus application heard. It was heard by Judge Morris. But although Judge Morris pretended to be attentive to what John Smith was saying, the bottom line was that he said, well, frankly, this is the courts of the United Kingdom, of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and these courts do not recognise any other jurisdiction. And so he ruled that basically he was not going to do anything to prevent Lyn Thyer from being extradited, and he certainly wasn't going to order a release pending further review. Well, literally in the last 2 minutes I have taken a phone call from David Noakes, who received a phone call from a police officer in Calais who was calling him on behalf of Lyn to let him know that she has now been extradited to France. She is being taken to Boulogne, where she will appear before a court, before then being taken to Paris. So today really has been a day that has demonstrated the magnitude of the corruption within the British courts system. And as Judge Morris clearly spelled out, then basically they have no interest in the Constitution or common law Constitution or common law courts, and the judiciary are simply here to uphold the will of the corporatocracy. So it's a very sad day, and obviously the battle isn't over. And we are already in contact with some people in France who will hopefully not only monitor the situation with Lyn, but also help to raise awareness of GC MAF in France. So what is happening here is that the corporatocracy, in collusion with the British and French judicial system, are determined to ensure that cancer cures, effective cancer treatments, are never permitted to come to market. So John Smith is still inside the courts here, awaiting the paperwork, awaiting the written ruling of Judge Morris, but I've pretty much summarised what that is. So what are we left with? Well, of course, I remind everyone that it's a call to action, and that call to action will bring people hopefully from all over the country, if not all over the world, at 11:11 a.m. on Wednesday the 11th of September. So that's 11:11 on 9/11/2019. And we call upon people from all over to come to Westminster, to the Houses of Parliament, to let the elected representatives know that we collectively are disgusted at the way in which the corporatocracy is allowed to ride roughshod over the health and well-being, not just of the people of this country, but right across the world. In fact, it's far worse in places like the United States. But of course, that's exactly what the corporatocracy wants to impose on this country once that we're out of the EU. And as I've said many times over the past few years, it's essential that we're out of the EU to re-establish self-determination. But then it's truly important that we have humans in office who have the best interests of humanity at the heart of their agenda, rather than the agenda of the corporatocracy. So please, a note in your diary to come to London, to the Houses of Parliament on that morning, 11:11, on Wednesday the 9th of September. Meanwhile, of course, please write to your MPs, right to the Justice Minister, Richard Buckland, I believe it is, to the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, and of course also to Boris Johnson. And if you have anyone in your family who is suffering from cancer, or has had somebody who has succumbed to cancer, then today what we have seen is the corrupt judiciary effectively condemning 120,000 people to death every year because they refuse to endorse a product that Big Pharma does not want to come to market because of the impact that it will have on their revenue stream. So this is a sad day, but it's only a battle in the war. Unfortunately, Lyn has become a casualty of that battle, and barring some divine intervention, then she is now facing something like 2 years in a French jail, if she survives that long. 2 years in a French jail before the case comes to court. And of course, the reason that Lyn Thyer has been targeted by the French is so that she is the bait to get David to France. And David's next court case is now scheduled for October the 11th. And this is under the Proceeds of Crime Act, where the Crown Prosecution Service, operating on behalf of Big Pharma and the MHRA, the Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Agency, seek to strip David of anything that he might still have to ensure that he never again considers challenging the supremacy of the pharmaceutical industry. And of course, it's not over then, because the French have made it abundantly clear that they're going for David. So having served time in a British jail in Wandsworth Prison and having been on tag, there's no such thing as double jeopardy anymore. And so he is open to be potentially extradited to France and following Lyn, and then serving potentially another jail term, as Big Pharma does everything it possibly can, not just to shut David and Lyn down, but to make sure that nobody has the thought that they can do the right thing for humanity by developing an effective treatment, up to and including a cure, that threatens the revenue stream of the pharmaceutical industry. So the reality is that if you know anyone who is working at any level in the pharmaceutical industry, whether they wish to acknowledge it or not, they have effectively sold their soul, because they are no longer working for the best interests of humanity. Yeah, a few of their pills may allay symptoms, but there's no money in health. But there's a shed load of money in keeping everybody sick, and the sicker, the better. So I'm going back on break here, but I may have to come out of that pending further developments here. But it's a very, very sad day, and I'm sure you join me in the heartfelt wishes to Lyn, and wishing her every strength. And when we have contact details for her, obviously we'll be sure to pass them on. And then we'll encourage people, of course, to write to Lyn, to let Lyn know that she has massive support. This is how the judiciary and the corporatocracy treat those who have no other desire than to do what is best for humanity. The fact that it has a negative impact on the revenue of the corporatocracy is not something that they're going to take lying down. So it's up to humanity. It's up to each and every one of us. If we do nothing, then obviously the prognosis is very clear. Lyn will be in jail for the next 2+ years, pending a court case, when she and David, assuming he's also extradited, will be sentenced. Alternatively, we can mobilize. And that mobilization starts with writing to Priti Patel and Buckland and Boris Johnson, and then continues on Wednesday, the 11th of September, outside Parliament. And if you have anyone who you know who has suffered or is suffering from cancer, they need to be there. GC math cures cancer. And that's what the establishment and the pharmaceutical industry do not want people to know. I'd like to say have a great day, but it's a bit difficult on the basis of what's transpired today. But I'm going to head back north. All the people that have come here today to support David and at Southwark and John Smith here. In fact, John is literally walking out of the court building right now. So John, I don't know if you're aware of this, but come into camera a second. Lyn is now in France. So Maurice, when he's making his comments, must have known that she was already out of the country, and it would strike me as being that's the reason that you got to get your application in today, because they knew it was too late.
Possibly, yeah, it's more than likely. They knew exactly what's going on. They're refusing to deal with every step of the line, so they won't deal with it. They won't hear a challenge hearing. They refuse to talk this, and today is the only day they're allowed us to go in front of a judge. And again, I didn't know myself, I hadn't been informed, but she's obviously away. At this moment in time, what the people need to do is stand up here and be accounted. The judge today, with the admission, had done various things. He was presented with a common law court finding which annulled the extradition order. He also was informed that Justice Supperstone, who made the decision regarding the appeal, he wasn't going to uphold it. He was a convicted criminal. Now again, it says he wasn't going to rule against that. He wasn't obviously going to pass comment, but he couldn't actually challenge the document, and he just says basically he doesn't deal with it. Under their system, he says they have the authority, and their court is a superior court, and that's it.
So John, I mean, you may want to actually defer an answer to this question because you might want to think on it.
Yeah.
But obviously, in the short term, people need to be writing to their MP, to Priti Patel, to Buckland, to Johnson. But what's the next stage in terms of the challenges from the common law court?
Well, again, it's something down. So the common law court's down to the people. This is what the people want. I do know that there's various individuals who step forward and says they want to address various issues with what's going on in this country. One of the main issues is obviously Lyn and David. You've got other issues in relation to 5G, vaccinations, a housing situation. So there are substantial cases coming up in the near future. There was a common law court convened a couple of days ago in the Isle of Man, which is great. I went over to watch. It was set up by an individual who convened his own court. The jury members turned up, gave a guilty verdict. That information will go up shortly, but they convicted and found the Lord Chief Justice guilty. So it's great. This is happening just now. The cases will continue, and if the people stand up and actually go to their politicians and tell them, Boris Johnson, the Justice Secretary, the Justice Minister, and the Home Secretary were all aware of this situation. Given what they've done to Lyn just now is disgusting, it's unlawful, and it's just confirmed that the peasants don't matter. As far as they're concerned, they do what they want, and that's it. What they have to remember is that people pay their wages, and if they're not doing what they should be doing, in my opinion, they should be removed. I believe that many of the people in the public would also comply that that's the situation. So therefore, as far as we're concerned, if they don't do what they're paid to do, remove them. And certainly in relation to these individuals, they have no credit at all. This is for the stance that they've taken. They know what's happening. They've allowed us. Effectively, the government and the individuals in authority here are committing treason against the people in this country. It's
but
not
they're committing treason because we collectively are letting them.
Yes.
So
it's not.
Basically, the reason we have these problems is because collectively we acquiesce through our absolute inaction.
Unless you stand up and you put yourself forward and say, look, this is where I stand, that's fine. We're not asking people to take to the streets. All we're asking people to do is confirm your stance with the common law court and that you agree. The principles basically state that anyone who is causing harm, loss or injury to another living man or woman should be held accountable for their behaviour. Therefore, what's happened today with Lyn and what's currently going on with David and many other people in this country is disgusting. And if these individuals are committing crimes against the people, they will be held accountable. But they'll be held accountable by the people in a court of the people. That's it.
And maybe, you know, if anyone needs to do a little bit of research, maybe it's time for people to reappraise themselves of the events of 1381 and Wat Tyler's rebellion. It didn't end too well for Wat Tyler back then, but you know, maybe in the 21st century there's another opportunity to establish the role that the people need to play in self-governance in a how should I say, less brutal fashion. I hope.
It can be done constructively. It's, you're not here trying to create World War III. It's basically, it can be done. The people in this country have the authority. If you remember, that's fine. We actually confirmed earlier on today, when we were at the hearing with David, that this is the authority we can confirm that the state don't have, because the Queen, the coronation wasn't actually lawful. It's a stretch of the imagination, but the evidence is available. It's been published by the Scottish Parliament, believe it or not, to confirm that the coronation was conducted unlawfully, and that means that the Queen has no authority, which in turn states that these judges throughout the UK have no authority at all. Now, the issue wasn't the paperwork we submitted. What went on is just that they cannot afford to obviously allow the Common Law Court to exist. They want to close it down. They don't want to be held accountable to the people, and that's what it's down to. It's as simple as that. They're committing crimes against the people. It is treason. They should be held accountable, but this is the only way they can tackle it.
Okay, well, meanwhile, spread the word. I was literally about to wrap the live stream as you came out, but spread the word, and please, if you can help in any way, shape or form, spread the word and get people down to London, to Parliament on the morning of Wednesday, the 11th of September 2019. So thanks for those people who have joined us via the live streams today, and thanks to those who have shared them. Obviously, this issue is applicable to cancer sufferers all over the world, and on the basis that it's forecast that every single person is going to be susceptible to some form of cancer within the next 20 years, this issue has never been more pertinent than it is now. So John, thanks for all your efforts today.
No, thank you.
David is obviously absolutely gutted. You know, he learned that Lyn was in France because he got a phone call from a police officer in Calais who was calling him at Lyn's behest to let him know that she had been taken out to France.
No, it's disgusting.
So hopefully this is something that the Gilets jaunes can pick up on. But of course, anybody who reads the British mainstream media and relies on their news from the mainstream media will think that everything's rosy in France. Well, it's just about to get a whole lot hotter. Okay, meanwhile, I'm back on break until the next time I'm not back on break. So watch this space. Otherwise, I will be back on the first, I think it's the second, Monday the 2nd of September. But somehow I have a feeling that I could be getting the tripod out a bit before that. Meanwhile, thanks again for everybody that came along today. Thanks a lot. Sorry it wasn't a more fruitful outcome.